Thanks for joining us. With everything that's been going on in the press lately with the Royal Commission, particularly the hearings into the HSU, a very prominent figure in the HSU has always been Craig Thomson. We've been getting a lot of queries regarding what we think Craig Thomson would think in relation to what's been going on within the HSU, particularly with the revelations against Cathy Jackson. And I thought, well, he hasn't been part of the Royal Commission. He hasn't been able to appear because of the appeal in his criminal matter. And so I thought, well, we'll invite him over and ask him a few questions. Thanks for joining us today, Craig. It's good of you to take time out to come and talk to our readers.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I've just got a few questions for you. A lot of readers have been asking us your perspective on things, given the Royal Commission and everything that's going on there. So yeah, I just wanted to run a few things by you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Have you been keeping up with the HSU hearings at the Royal Commission, and how do you feel the Royal Commission's going so far?
Well, look, I think most of Australia's been following the hearings. They've been quite sensational, at least in relation to the Health Services Union. So, and you know, people ring me up all the time anyway and ask questions about stuff. So, inevitably, I've been following that. Look, it's an interesting Royal Commission, as Royal Commissions are. They tend to have a political focus, and I think that's become evident as well. You don't see Royal Commissions into business failures, just not paying entitlements, those sorts of things. It's always about this side of politics and their connections that are theirs. But yeah, it's been interesting.
That's right. I mean, it has come across as a very pointed Royal Commission in that regard.
Look, it was I don't think the Abbott government is hidden from that. They made it an election promise, and it's put in that. It hasn't come out of anything other than their election promise. So.
Given the rampant rorting of the members that's been going on at the HSU based on what's come up at the Royal Commission, and the complete lack of respect that those running the union seem to have had for the union members' funds, do you feel that you were targeted because of your introduction of financial governance into the union?
Well, when I started in the National Secretary position at the Health Services Union, there were no financial statements. There was not a finance committee. They didn't have budgets. Right. They didn't meet. There was not even a National Council that met. You'd have a room with 3 or 4 people carrying 40 or 50 proxy votes each, and try to change all of that and move it on, and that wasn't very popular, particularly with the 2 larger branches.
No, well, I can imagine it.
So New South Wales had a problem with it, and so did the Victorians.
Many people have commented after hearing the doorstop with Cathy Jackson and Marco Bolano, where they accused a rather prominent Australian journalist of attending a brothel with you.
Did you tell your branch? Did you tell your branch committee?
And yes, I did. And Mr.
You told them that you had personal bank account with the union members' funds.
Were you there in the red turbo spa room with Mr. Thompson?
I beg your pardon?
After a lunch with Mr. Williamson.
What do you mean about that?
Are you going to pay back the HSU members for the hospitality, Mr. Norrington?
I beg your pardon?
Long lunches with Williamson, Mr. Norrington.
I believe I've never had one, but anyway.
That has put a lot of weight into your claims that Marco Bolano set you up with hookers. What's your impression of that, and how do you feel about it?
Well, look, what I'd invite people to go back is, and I know it was a long speech, almost an hour, but to go back and at least have a scan through some of the things that I said there. And in that speech, I went through the troubled times that the Health Services Union was being put in there, trying to balance what was an ongoing factional war that would have made those in the Ukraine envious as to how ruthless and devastating that it was for members. So that was the basis that was there. I then raised the whole range of issues about financial impropriety, how that had occurred, who should be looking at, and these things are starting to come out now. Now, the issue in relation to being set up, I mean, this was threats that were made to me. They were made in front of a whole range of witnesses, and what we see on Friday a week ago is that they're continuing to be made, and it appears that there is a pattern in which this is a way of trying to intimidate and silence people, and that's clearly what it was used in relation to me.
That's the perspective I took from it as well. It seemed to be like the journalist in question's a very senior journalist, and he seems to have good background on the HSU matter, and I think that is why they targeted him. But it was just, I found it incredibly interesting that they'd go after him in terms of being with a hooker. I mean, it's
well, it was
almost like deja vu.
Well, it was a ridiculous allegation.
That's right.
And taken so by everyone who was there. That's why it hasn't been reported.
That's right. Yeah.
But when it was made against me, it was a highly different thing.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about your parliamentary address. It seems quite a while back now, but you'll no doubt remember that at the time this address was quite heavily ridiculed, and by those in the mainstream media, and they were obviously using it to destroy your credibility. And I wanted to ask you about a particular part of that address, which I'll read to you now. These are your words. Cathy Jackson drives a union paid for Volvo. It is alleged that she has childcare and gym fees paid for by the union. These are issues that I'm raising on the public record. This is not something I'm seeking to use privilege for that is not already out there. She has had numerous overseas trips, none of which as National Secretary I was aware visited any unions. Within weeks after I left, her salary almost doubled from the salary that I received, allegedly now being around $270,000. She sat on the board of Hester, but when collecting board fees for many years, however rarely attending meetings. But when the union decided the board fees should go to the union, she left the board. She got an $84,000 golden handshake from her branch when they merged and formed the HSU East branch of the union, and that is the branch that is in so much trouble and the subject of so many inquiries. I was just wondering how you feel about that part of your statement in light of current events and where the Royal Commission's going.
Look, on reflection, I was very conservative in what I said about Cathy and what's come out. I mean, they're all issues that are now taken as being absolutely the truth, and much more in terms of that. I mean, we've now heard about, and I've never heard of this ever before, but someone being paid a salary and paying themselves an honorarium at the same time of
$63,000.
$63,000 is quite incredible.
Signed the cheque herself.
The overseas trips, there's much more evidence about the amounts of dollars that were spent on them. It's quite staggering. So these were things that I raised at the time as being part of the motivation, because these were coming under the spotlight, and clearly the union, through its current leadership at the national office, is looking at trying to expose these issues to help them clean up this situation. But she continues to tell lies about her position in every forum. The problem for Cathy is that she changes her story in every forum as well too. I know in my case, for example, the childcare issue was raised with her, and she tried to explain to the judge that this was instead of paying for maternity leave. Of course, when we asked her how old her children would be,
that's right.
They were school-age children, so it's a very long maternity leave provisions if that's what they were trying to do. But it was a simple lie that takes about 2 seconds to uncover once you look beyond what's there, and that is the way in which she operates.
Actually, speaking of the overseas trips, the one that came up in the Commission's last hearing, or in the cross-examination, was the $80,000 trip to the US, and she put most of that down as being the Harvard expense. You did the Harvard trip.
I did.
Do you remember off the top of your head how?
Well, it's a scholarship, and she was so they pay for everything. They pay for the airfares, they pay for the accommodation, they pay for your food, they give you a living allowance each day. At the end of it, they pay for you to travel around the United States at their expense as well too. So look, there may be some incidental expenses, but basically any other costs that are there are related to your own personal costs. You might buy souvenirs or whatever. But even if you said those were to be included, it's hard to see how that's $80,000 worth of
that's
issue. I mean, the scholarship's not worth $80,000.
A lot of souvenirs.
It is a lot of souvenirs.
In another part of your parliamentary address, you mentioned Michael Lawler, who's Cathy Jackson's partner, and he's someone that has featured heavily in investigations. How deep do you think his involvement ran, and do you think it is appropriate at all that he maintains his position as Vice President of Fair Work Commission?
Well, the point I was making in my address to Parliament was that in relation to me, there was over 1,000 pages. In relation to Jeff Jackson, it was like a 15-page document. There are issues and allegations in relation to Jeff of using credit cards at exactly the same brothels that I was alleged to have done so. Yet the word brothel, credit card and prostitute were never used at all in that particular document. Now, unfortunately, this Royal Commission hasn't looked at Vice President Lawler at all. So we haven't advanced terribly much from my statement to Parliament, which was these things need to be looked at. They need to go beyond and have a look, what is his role? There have been stories about it, but, that needs to be examined, and this Royal Commission has chosen not to. They have called commissioners from Fair Work Australia. I know Deputy President Reardon was called and had to give evidence in relation to his former work at the ETU and the like, but they haven't done that for Vice President Lawler, and it's quite amazing.
He was actually a noticeable absence from when Jackson was being cross-examined.
Well, even as an interested party, it's probably inappropriate that he be there in any state, given his position. But one would have thought that when Fair Work Australia did their own internal investigation of the report on me and found it to be full of holes, and in particular pointed out a lack of cooperation by Vice President Lawler and over his electronic devices.
And he was the only one too, I thought.
That's right, he was the only one, and the whole range of questions their own internal review had about him. You would have thought the Royal Commission would take the opportunity to ask a couple of questions at least about this issue. And look, I think it's something that the Royal Commission still has time to do, but it certainly goes to its credibility that it hasn't.
Yeah. A few months ago, Christopher Pyne and the Coalition passed a parliamentary apology that related to your parliamentary address. The apology was made in regard to comments that you'd made about Cathy Jackson, Marco Bolano and Michael Williamson. How did you feel when that apology came about, and in light of what's come out since, do you think it's something that should be retracted?
Well, I was pretty angry at the time that it happened. I mean, it was clearly just a political stunt, and I did think that perhaps the Labor side of politics could have been a little bit stronger on that, though Tony Burke did make the point that this is just a political stunt and we're not going to deal with it because of those issues and let it go through. Look, they also referred me to the Privileges Committee, and I am looking forward to coming down to Canberra to go through word by word my speech to Parliament, because as I said, if anything, I was a little light in terms of what I said about people. I did give them the benefit of the doubt. I just raised the issues that had been put out there in public, and what we've found through the Royal Commission is that what I said was the mere tip of the iceberg. So I think as the passage of time has gone by, my speech has been confirmed in relation to every aspect that I raised about it. It's an absolute disgrace that the Federal Parliament has now issued an apology to Cathy Jackson, Michael Bolano and Michael Williamson. That's essentially the three people that they've and Michael Lawler. And in relation to Michael Lawler, all I asked was that those issues be looked at, nothing more than that. So those people have been issued with a public apology by our Parliament, putting it up there with the apology to the stolen generation, and I'm quite angry about that, putting aside myself, but angry about the misuse of Parliament for that particular purpose.
All right. So I also wanted your thoughts on where you're sitting at the moment with your appeal, and do you think that the outcome of the Royal Commission will have an impact on your appeal?
Well, I've obviously got to be a little careful because the appeal's coming up. The appeal is a complete appeal, so it's in relation, because it was heard by a magistrate, you have an automatic right to have the whole case heard again as if there is no conviction, as if there has been no case. So we will run that case again. My thoughts on the original case were that whoever was hearing it was being subject to enormous public pressure by what was being put in the papers. Quite clearly, with a passage of time and what's come out about Cathy Jackson, who is the main accuser in relation to my case, things have changed in relation to public opinion, at least in relation to her credibility. So looking forward to having I think a clearer atmosphere for a proper hearing later on this year.
Yeah.
And obviously the things that have come out from the Royal Commission are of assistance. I mean, Cathy tried to tell the Royal Commission that the use of cash was never done in the HSU in my case. And
how much cash withdrawals were we talking about in your case?
They were talking, I think it's about $5,000 or $6,000 is what I've been charged with over the 5 years.
And she's withdrawn hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
Over $100,000.
Exactly, and largely because of Cathy's evidence, the magistrate made the decision that because of the practices of the union, that cash shouldn't be used for anything, and if it was criminal to use it for whatever purpose. So, be it legitimate union purposes or not, he took a decision that cash shouldn't be used at all. Now, her evidence was crucial in terms of that, and she, quite frankly, misled the court.
You were National Secretary at the time the Peter Mac settlement was finalised. What are your thoughts on what happened and how you think the workers were shortchanged?
Look, I have some pretty clear recollections of Cathy coming and speaking to me about the case that they were going to run and the back pay, and how it was going to be a big thing for their members that Peter Mac had stuffed up in terms of their rates of pay. And she was very proud that they were going to do that. And it was very encouraging about her to do that, and of course that's the way you sort of do things. Everyone has their war stories. The New South Wales branch used to talk about how a single member got $2 million in back pay because of unfair contracts, and that was the sort of story they'd tell all the time. And Cathy was telling me, so this was her kind of war story. I was obviously shocked to find out, like everyone else, that didn't go to the members, that it went to her back pocket. And this, National Health Medical Fund or whatever that she had set up,
the NHDA.
The NHDA, never heard of it. And given the word national in it, and that it was about health and the union, you would have thought that as the National Secretary, we would have, I would have known something about it.
Yeah, it had a legitimate sound to it, didn't it?
Well, I would have seen it in operation, seen where they spent the money. Absolutely never heard of it. This was a completely secret fund that was a revelation to me.
The only people that seemed to be aware of it was the BCOM.
Well, some of the BCOM.
Some of them,
I think they're starting to have fading memories as to what they actually were approving and what they weren't approving, and the like. And look,
the lack of minutes doesn't help either, I suppose.
It doesn't. And to be fair to branch committee of management members, they're ordinary members who come along once a month, sit in a meeting, and are supportive of their leadership. And so, if the leader, in this case Cathy Jackson, said, "This is what the legal situation is, this is the result that we've got, I want you to approve that," you would approve it without questioning, 9 times out of 10. And I can only imagine that that's what's occurred. I mean, that's what we found occurred with the Williamson matter. There was not an issue there that didn't go through his branch committee of management, but it was still fraudulent, illegal, and a ripping off of union members' funds. I don't see that as being a terribly good defence for her. But I have never heard of a union doing a back pay claim and not giving the money back to the people that they're claiming on behalf of.
It seems the exact opposite of what a union's designed to, or there to do. The union's designed to obviously look after the workers' needs before anything else, and it just seems that they were the last things on anybody's mind when it came to doing this deal.
Yeah, look, what I suspect is that this fund was not just used from the Peter Mac money, but was a range of money went into there. The evidence of the Royal Commission appears to be that there is evidence of a whole range of private and personal spending by Cathy Jackson. There is absolutely no evidence of the type of political spending on campaigns or even personal political campaigns within the ALP that she's trying to characterise this fund as. There is not one zot of evidence that's been put before the Royal Commission. Apparently it exists.
That was all done with cash, apparently.
Well, cash and in some exercise book that's disappeared as well. So it's a kind of a funny old story that's there. But there is a lot of evidence of her using it for personal expenses.
That's right. There's the David Jones transactions, JB Hi-Fi, countless others.
Yes.
Do you feel like you were the subject of a trial by media, and if so, what impact do you think that actually had on your legal case?
I think it had a significant effect on the court case, absolutely. For a humble backbencher, I think I've had more front pages than any backbencher in the history of this country,
probably more prime ministers.
And anyone who tells you all publicity is good publicity, they're not telling you the truth, let me tell you. And of course it plays a role. It plays a significant role. We wouldn't be lodging an appeal and running a case if not only do I know that I'm right, but my lawyers tell me I'm right and have always been right in terms of that. We didn't get the right decision. I'm assuming part of that was because of the influence that this long-running campaign of 3 or 4 years had in terms of the public perception and then the perception of the magistrate. I mean, Tony Abbott was quite clear about it. He said at a press conference, we're not going to let up on Craig Thomson, and we're going to break him, because they wanted to get one person out of the parliament. And that was the basis of what they were trying to do.
Given your treatment by mainstream media, how important do you feel the role of independent media is in order to provide balance?
Oh, it's the role that Independent Australia and your blog site WikiLeaks has had has been absolutely crucial, from not just exposing stories that the mainstream media 3 or 4 years later come around and now accept as orthodoxy, but can I say personally, just in terms of giving hope that the actual story will come out, so that there is another source that's there, and increasingly that's where people are getting their news and information through, what I think will come out in the wash is that reputable non-mainstream media organisations such as Independent Australia and WikiLeaks will become more prominent, and some of the more extreme ones on either side of the political spectrum will start to drop away as time goes by, and as users of the media and the internet become more discerning as to what's there. I mean, there's a lot of choice that's out there, and there's a terrific role that has been played and will continue to be played, and I think that role will just get stronger and stronger.
All right, well, thanks for your time today, Craig, and thanks for clearing up a few things for the readers.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
And,
Anytime.
Yeah. All right.
Terrific. Thanks.
Cheers.